Wow, y'all really didn't play this game, did you? Seriously, The Last of Us Part 2 faced massive backlash upon its release, but I honestly believe it's one of the best games I've played in the last decade. 6 months earlier, and it may have even taken the #1 spot in my top 20 games I played in 2020 video. This game is stellar, it's absolutely incredible, and I'll get to why in a sec, but before I do that, let me just address something. My content creator friends warned me against making this video, and the whole process of making it has been discussion after discussion about the drama surrounding the game, so I feel like it would be an injustice if I didn't at least mention it before I actually start talking about the game. Whatever you think about the quality of the writing is totally valid, okay? We do not have to agree, and while I do hope this video opens somebody's eyes to how great the writing really is, you're still entitled to your opinion, and you're welcome to discuss it in the comments, just, be nice about it. What you're not welcome to do is hate on other people because of their identity. This game features same-sex couples and trans individuals. If you're not okay with that, you can click away now. Understood? Alright. The Last of Us Part 2 released in 2020, almost exactly 7 years after the release of the first entry in the franchise, and it did so to critical acclaim. It scored a total of 93 on Metacritic, with not even one single critic leaving a negative review. In fact, the lowest score it got from anyone was a 65. Now, I have my own opinions on what constitutes a mixed review, but considering that 7 out of 8 of the mixed reviews here scored a 70, really speaks volumes. This game had an overwhelmingly positive response from critics and media outlets, landing it solidly in the top 10 PS4 games of all time, according to Metacritic, only 2 spots below the first game. Of course, the user score tells a different story, and look, I'm not gonna waste your time with this. I read a lot of user reviews, and though a lot of them are legitimate, there are far too many that stray too close to homophobia or transphobia, so, I'm not going to be discussing those today. Alongside this critical acclaim, The Last of Us Part 2 was nominated for and won dozens of accolades. Many of those focused on storytelling, game design, and technology, but hidden away in those technology and design categories is also innovation and accessibility. The Last of Us Part 2 pretty much redefined what it means to have an accessible game. I mean, I don't even know where to start. There are so many things this game does to put it well above the crowd. Anything you can think of that could affect how you play the game or prevent you from being able to play the game is completely under the player's control. An unbelievable amount of attention went into these settings, not only to allow people who would normally not be able to play a game like The Last of Us to play a game like The Last of Us, but also to encourage others to play the way they find most comfortable. Take the difficulty settings, for example. In most games, you might find something like an easy, normal, hard difficulty selection. That normal is what I want to focus in on. That kind of language can make several kinds of implications when it comes to the gameplay experience. One, it can communicate that this is, in fact, the intended experience for the game, and in some cases, that may be the truth. But two, this may signal to some people that they're just bad at video games, that they could be missing out on a better, more complete experience. Neither of those situations are ideal. At worst, it may lead to some gamers, you know the ones, to lord their top-tier gamer skills over those who just play games for the story. In the past, other games have taken to the extreme and catered to these individuals, outright insulting their players for even considering playing the game on a less challenging difficulty. But something so simple as a challenge rating shouldn't be held to such a high degree of gatekeeping. Can you tell I don't like Wolfenstein? When it comes to The Last of Us, they do away with the implications that come alongside that kind of language, indicating loud and clear that this game was designed to be played on any difficulty setting. Not only listing challenge ratings from very light to moderate to hard, but also allowing you to customize the experience yourself. Do you do fine in combat situations but struggle with stealth? You can change that. Do you find yourself always needing more resources? You can make them more common. Anything from the amount of damage the player takes to how aggressively your allies react in combat can be adjusted. It's incredible. And then you take a look at the actual accessibility menu, something that most games don't even have, and the sheer amount of adjustments you can make is beyond great. Say you've got a visual impairment, or like 32.2 million adult Americans, you've experienced some form of vision loss. Well, there are plenty of options for you. You can scale the user interface up so that everything is big and easy to see. You can even magnify menus so that they take up most of the screen when you're using them. And if you have trouble seeing detail in the environments, that feature can also be used to zoom and pan around the scenery. Sometimes interactable objects can be hard to see. Sometimes finer details in environments could be all you have to go off of when finding your way around. And for that, The Last of Us 2 provides optional traversal cues, maybe a big arrow on screen to point you in the right direction, or even something as subtle as a unique sound for when you approach an interactable object. If you're colorblind, you could benefit from any number of options here too. From simple menu filters to full-on high contrast mode, which changes the game from the regular color palette most of us are used to a fairly muted environment with heavily emphasized allies, enemies, and interactive objects. To someone out there, this option is an absolute game changer. Literally. And that's precisely why it's important to have this kind of support. I mean, some of these are quite complicated to implement. Not everyone is going to be able to add all of these to all of their games, especially not smaller developers or indie studios. But when it comes to something like colorblind options for the user interface, or custom control schemes, including presets for special controller orientations, that kind of stuff can sometimes be borderline trivial to implement. And even though we usually label options like these as accessibility options, implying they're not meant to be used by everyone, they absolutely can be used by everyone. Not only do these options raise up those who wouldn't normally be able to experience the medium of video games, but it can be leveraged to customize and improve the experience for anyone who plays your game. For example, you might notice that I used yellow subtitles in my playthrough. I don't have any visual impairments or anything, I just prefer reading yellow subtitles over white ones, especially in darker games like this, and I would say it definitely enhanced the experience for me. I would love to see more developers adapt more comprehensive options like the ones in The Last of Us Part 2. Welcoming a wider audience into video games as a storytelling medium is always a positive thing, especially if everyone gets to play. I mean, sure, you could watch a friend play, or maybe tune into your favorite streamer, but sometimes that just doesn't compare to actually getting to play the game yourself. And for people who can already enjoy video games just fine without it, it opens the door for a more customized and more enjoyable gameplay experience. But that's not the only place where this game shines. Naughty Dog has become well known in the games industry for their work on cinematic games. The Last of Us is obviously no exception to that. Heck, I even called my video about the first one cinematic gaming. The storytelling in this game is absolutely its biggest feature. So it probably goes without saying that we're about to get deep into spoiler territory here. I'm also operating on the assumption that you've played the game before, because this is only a half-hour long video and there's like 40 hours of story I would have to recap otherwise. But either way, I really strongly recommend you play the game first. It's an absolute work of art. Just be prepared to have your heart broken. Okay, let's go! The story of The Last of Us Part 2 picks up shortly after the events of the first game. In the prologue, Joel polishes a guitar as he recounts the story to his brother Tommy, telling him all about how Ellie would have to die for a vaccine, and how he mowed down the fireflies in order to protect her. Of course, this is a lot for Tommy to take in, but he vows to keep the secret regardless. The two then pack up and ride back to Jackson. Later that same night, Joel stops by Ellie's apartment and brings in the guitar he was polishing earlier. He plays a song for Ellie. Future Days by Pearl Jam. This song carries a lot of weight, and it's honestly really thematically appropriate. The opening lyric, "If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself," feels so reminiscent of Joel's actions in the later half of Part 1 and rings through to the rest of Part 2. It demonstrates how Joel views Ellie as a kind of daughter, how he would do anything to see her succeed. Anything. At the beginning of The Last of Us Part 1, he was cold and jaded. He had lost everything he ever found dear, and Ellie helped him find himself again. At the same time, it recalls his relationship with Sarah and how he couldn't save her. how he lost himself when he lost her. This song is important. Not only does it appear several times throughout the story, but the lyrics, every single one of them, including the ones not being sung, have a very intense meaning behind them, in the story and in real life. This game has a lot of dark themes, especially surrounding grief and loss, and how people can react to that. Just like how The Last of Us Part 1 follows Joel's journey to find himself again after having lost his daughter, the one person he cared about the most, The Last of Us Part 2 not only follows the difficulties of losing someone you love, but also the struggle of losing yourself in the process. Within the first chapter of the game, we learn that Joel and Ellie have had a falling out. It's not something we're given much context on. We don't really have a reason. All we know is that the pair are on shaky ground at the moment. At the same time, Ellie is building a new relationship with Dina, one of the new protagonists. Things seem to be going well for her despite her struggle with Joel, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when later that same day, Joel fails to return from his shift on lookout. During this first chapter, we've spent some time playing as Abby, a new character whose background isn't exactly fleshed out at the moment. All we really know is that she's come to Jackson to find someone. Well, turns out that someone is Joel, and she's not come with good intent. Ellie, having managed to track them down, is pinned to the floor and forced to watch as Abby brutally murders Joel for reasons seemingly unknown to her, but possibly known to him. It's important to note here that we, as the players, have likely spent upwards of 15 hours watching Joel's story unfold, playing as him, and experiencing all the same emotions he did as he rediscovered life in The Last of Us Part 1. Before the first chapter of Part 2 is over, he's already gone. Not in some graceful way. This isn't a matter of natural causes. He's pulled away from Ellie and from us in one of the most violent and sickening ways possible. When the first gunshot rings and Abby blows out Joel's kneecap, the first thing that went through my mind was, how's he gonna get out of this? When Ellie arrives, the first thing she does is tell everyone in that room that she's going to kill them. When Owen tells Abby to end it, the first words out of Ellie's mouth are, "Joel, get up! Joel, fucking get up!" Abby raises the golf club and Ellie says, "Please, don't do this." And the next day, well, that speaks for itself. Ellie is grieving. We're grieving. And it doesn't stop there. Acceptance doesn't just come right away. Ellie's time with Joel was cut short, and they weren't on great terms with each other when it happened. She doesn't want to believe it. She's angry, and she will do anything to make this pain stop. Anything. Ellie meant it when she said she was going to kill them. Joel was the first person to stay by her side, the first one to believe in her and care about her, and even if they didn't see themselves as a family, he was a father figure. She just lost everything. She didn't get closure. She doesn't even know how Joel felt after their falling out. And just like Ellie, our time with Joel was cut short as well. I'm sure there are a lot of people who expected that this game would follow Joel and Ellie together, but, you know, things don't always go the way you want them to. The rest of the story is, well, as expected, a revenge plot. Despite Tommy's best efforts to prevent Ellie from leaving, she vows to anyway, which only results in Tommy going in her place. And when Ellie leaves to stop him, Dina follows to make sure Ellie's okay. And when Dina goes, Jesse is soon to follow. He can't let them do this on their own. And it's a good thing too, because turns out, Dina's pregnant. Ellie's actions are violent, messy, and self-destructive. But when you self-destruct in such an explosive way, the people around you are bound to get hurt. Ellie didn't want any of this. Nobody wanted any of this. The rest of Ellie's story follows her as she systematically hunts down and eliminates the people we now know to be former Fireflies, the same ones Joel massacred at the end of Part 1. The others don't want to stay. They want to find Tommy and bring him home, bring Dina home. She can't defend herself in her current state. Jesse does his best to convince Ellie that getting home is the priority, but she can't shake the obsession, so they split up. She pushes him away, and not everybody gets to go home. 3 days after reaching Seattle, Ellie finally finds Abby. 3 days of fighting, hunting, killing everyone in that room. Everyone except for Abby. So Abby came to her. And before they even see each other, Jesse is already dead. We don't even get to see how the rest of it unfolds, at least not yet. Abby orders Ellie to drop her weapon. She points the gun and...
Dad?
We flash back to Abby's childhood. So, throughout the game, we've gotten to see a lot of these flashbacks. They serve as a way to more thoroughly flesh out Abby and Ellie's backstories. For Ellie, that means getting more time with Joel and witnessing how their relationship goes from close and loving to sour and distant. Starting with the prologue, then moving to the birthday present where Ellie sees graffiti slamming the fireflies. She starts to question what happened at the hospital. Then she starts questioning Joel, and eventually, she gets him to admit that he killed the fireflies in order to save her. For Abby, it means spending more time with her father and exploring her other personal relationships. They introduce her father as a great man who cares for zoo animals that have lost their caretakers. They explore Abby's relationship with Owen more deeply and how they have a positive influence on each other, how deeply the two care about each other, and they explain that Abby's father was the surgeon at St. Mary's Hospital, the one that Joel gunned down in cold blood in order to save Ellie. These flashbacks serve as a way to explain the motivations of Abby and Ellie throughout the story. For Ellie, they make a sad story worse, showing that the loss of Joel wasn't just when he died, but a slow and painful process unraveling over the course of years. At least before he was taken from her, there was a chance of that recovering. But now that he's gone for good, there's no way Joel and Ellie could ever repair that relationship. What was taken from Ellie was taken at the absolute worst time, directly after a fight, one that could have been motivated by years of resent. What was taken from Ellie wasn't just a role model, not just her only real family member, but potential. Abby's flashbacks take a character that we began resenting the moment she was introduced, and they humanize her. They explain her motivations, why she was so angry, why she felt the need to come after Joel. They justify her actions the same way Ellie's actions are justified. And the flashbacks in general provide brief respite from the emotionally harrowing story of the main plot. They come between big story moments when tension is high, and they ease it just a bit. Yeah, the flashbacks themselves are extremely emotional, but at least nobody's lives are on the line. At least, not any we don't already know about. Seattle. Day 1. Just as the tension from the climax is eased and the flashback ends, the timeline starts over from the beginning, this time from Abby's perspective. For the last 13 hours of gameplay, we've been seeing everything from Ellie's point of view. Abby has been a pretty unknown character, her motivations being explained through others, their notes to each other, and through the events of the first game. But now, we get to see things through her eyes. We're introduced to her friends, everyone we've just witnessed being mercilessly killed. We get to know Mel, Owen, Manny, and so many others. Oftentimes, Abby's path nearly intersects with Ellie's, with the two being separated by a mere few hours at a time. For the most part, she's unaware of the crew from Jackson as she deals with a myriad of other problems. While we watch Abby struggle to come to terms with Owen and Mel's relationship and being outcast from her home at the WLF, the player can't help but keep in mind that things are about to get so much worse. Living through these 3 days with Abby, seeing her for who she is, knowing that revenge and murder are not her only motivations, that she cares about everyone around her. Seeing her save and protect a pair of Seraphites who the rest of the WLF would kill on sight and being outcast because of it. Seeing her risk life and limb, facing her biggest fears just to protect these two children who are now being hunted by both factions, only to have one of them killed in front of her shortly after by the leader of the WLF, her family. And this entire time, knowing that she will at some point find her friends murdered at the hands of Ellie, the only people she has left in the whole world, taken away from her right as she's lost everything else she cares about. It's heartbreaking. It's painful. It's humanizing. I feel for Abby. This isn't meant to justify Joel's murder, but seeing everything from her perspective makes it harder, knowing that the climax is coming once again. That we'll be back in the theater, Abby and Ellie facing each other down. More people are going to die. And both of these characters are only human. I don't want this for either of them. So when we do catch back up, and we watch as Abby shoots Tommy in the head, and then we go on to play as Abby as she tries to kill Ellie, the tension is so much higher than it ever could have been without seeing Abby's side of the story, without seeing her struggle, without seeing her lose everyone she cared about just as Ellie lost Joel. It hurts all that much more when Abby nearly kills Dina, and it's an incredible relief when Lev becomes the voice of reason and convinces Abby not to go through with it, to just leave them there, their business unfinished, potentially forever. And the pain persists as we step forward into the future and we meet JJ, Jesse and Dina's son. Their life together on the farm should be so happy and content, but it just ends up bittersweet. Their losses linger over them. Ellie is, and always will be, haunted by the loss of Joel and by what she went through trying to avenge him. She can't let it go. She's a fragment of her former self. She won't eat. She's lost weight. It's all she can do to be with Dina and be there for JJ. And then we see Tommy, the bullet to his head having miraculously just shaved by his temple, leaving him blind in his right eye. He can't let it go either. The docile man who just wanted to grieve at the beginning of our story has now become a dark reflection of what Ellie was back then. Not only does he fail to let go, but he's become obsessive. At the confrontation with Abby, he took an arrow to the knee. He can't go after her, so he's come to beg Ellie into doing it for him, and when she refuses, he gets angry and storms out. But Ellie can't go. Doing that would mean losing the only remaining joys in her life, losing Dina and JJ and the farm. But maybe she has to. Maybe it's the only way she can finally put her mind at ease. Meanwhile, Abby and Lev have gone to Santa Barbara, where Owen is adamant the last of the Fireflies have held up. Abby, once so cynical as to have never believed it, has become so hopeful that Owen was right. Doing this strengthens her connection with him and gives his death meaning. Even when she arrives to find that the Fireflies have left, she's able to contact them on the old radio they left behind. Finally, things are going well. She has hope. Until she and Lev are both captured by this gang. The Rattlers. Several months later, Ellie rolls up to Santa Barbara, intent on finding and killing Abby, despite being malnourished and having a clear disadvantage. To make matters worse, she too gets caught in one of the Rattlers' traps, impaling herself on a tree. Weak and losing blood, she still manages to fight off the gang members who point her toward where Abby is being held, and she fights her way down to the shore. What she finds is not pretty. Abby and dozens of other people, tied to posts, just hanging on by a thread. When Ellie finds Abby, the only thing she's concerned about is Lev. She goes straight for him, lets him down, and leads Ellie to some boats so they can both leave. Ellie almost forgets why she's there, and when she does remember, Abby refuses to fight her. Until Ellie holds a knife to Lev and forces her to do it. What follows is a gruesome and emotional fight. It doesn't feel like a victory. Nothing about it feels good. Ellie isn't redeeming anyone. Joel isn't being avenged. Abby has suffered enough. And just like Ellie found Joel, Lev found Abby. Who is she to take that away? In the final moments, when Ellie is holding Abby under the water, she has everything she needs to put an end to this. But then she remembers her final interaction with Joel, after the dance, after their falling out, and it was a good one. They made peace. Joel insists that if he had a second chance, he would do it all over again. For her. To see her grow up into the great woman that she had become. He didn't know this would be the last time he ever saw her, but I'm absolutely sure that if he knew that it was, and that saving her was what got him killed, he would still do it all over again. And Ellie isn't sure that she could ever forgive him for what he did, and states that she would like to try. In these final moments with Abby, she recognizes that nothing she can do will ever bring him back, that Joel wouldn't want to see her like this, and accepts that their final moment together was a good one, and she lets Abby go. When Ellie tells Abby to go, to just take him, she's not just talking about Lev. In the fight, Abby bit off 2 of Ellie's fingers. She can't play the guitar anymore. That song, Future Days by Pearl Jam, she'll never play it again. The music that Joel taught her is gone. The one thing Ellie continually returned to throughout the story. Back at the farm, she still tries to play. But when she can't, she sets the guitar down, sets Joel down, and leaves, accepting all that she's been through. The ending of The Last of Us 2 is not a happy one, but neither should it be. Losing someone you love always hurts, and there's nothing we can do to avoid that. This game isn't just a story about revenge, it's a story of love, of loss, and grief. It's always going to be interesting to me that this game received as much backlash as it did, especially when you consider the more reasonable side of the argument. The characters in the game are not the only ones grieving, so are the players, and they're reacting in the same way that both Ellie and Abby did. It's never okay to threaten someone's life, but there is something to be said about how effectively The Last of Us Part 2 evokes emotion. To so thoroughly transfer that feeling of grief and loss and anger into its player base, so thoroughly in fact as to get them to mimic the behavior of the characters in-game, is truly a feat to behold. The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the greatest games I've ever played, and it's absolutely one of the best cinematic stories I've ever witnessed. But after that, I think I need a nice long nap and some time to decompress. I'll see you guys again in a couple of weeks. Hopefully with something a little less, heartbreaking. For now, I've been Cosmo. Thanks for watching.